yet again, we are treated to a last-minute thriller between England and New Zealand, and I have to say, the last 10 minutes of this game was extremely intense, could have gone either way. In fact, a lot of people would argue that England were the better side for today, but New Zealand, they managed to score themselves 3 tries, including a late one from Mark Talia to make his double, help New Zealand towards the points that they required for this game. But in this review, we're going to be looking through at a few of the stats. Of course, there were some very big talking points around this game, certain injuries, certain combinations that didn't really work. But first of all, England's defence once again was exactly what people expected. It was strong. At times it was unbreakable, and New Zealand were just making a lot of bad decisions when it came to what to do with the ball in hand. And that was down to that English pressure, being able to get guys in the breakdown, put in the big hits. One in particular that stands out was that big one from Chandler Cunningham South, who did extremely well throughout this contest. In terms of New Zealand, players who stepped up for them, Wallace Satiti was a game changer here for New Zealand, having over 100 metres carried, and in times when they weren't making metres, he was. So I feel like that is the signs of a great player. He's continued his form from last week up against the Japanese. He's continued it from the Rugby Championship. He has to be in the starting lineup. In terms of a few of the other players for New Zealand, we didn't really see that Ratama and Barrett combination work too well throughout this match. Beauden Barrett obsessed with going for those chips in behind, and England actually fell into that same category. Marcus Smith trying cross kicks, trying those little dinks over the top, and most of the time, neither side was successful. It was actually a tactic, I think, that was burdening both sides rather than improving their game. All of New Zealand's tries came from running the ball. England's try came from running the ball. None of the tries came from those kicks. So I'm curious to see what kind of tactics we see next week for these two sides. England have Australia, New Zealand have Ireland, but I don't think they can get away with the aimless kicking that we saw in this game. In terms of the penalty count, New Zealand, they had a lot of them against them. 11 penalties. In the end, England gave away 8, but only giving away their second in around the 50th minute. They were extremely disciplined when they were on defence. New Zealand, they had a lot of errors in those breakdowns in terms of committing at the wrong time and also just giving away silly penalties. We saw that near the end of the game, which almost cost New Zealand when Anton Leonard-Brown got yellow carded. And honestly, Clark could have ended up with one for a deliberate knockdown as well. Handling errors, there were a lot of them throughout this contest. And in the later stages of the contest, New Zealand's scrum actually was working very nicely. So that meant that England could not afford to drop the ball. But New Zealand certainly had a lot of drop balls throughout this contest. But it was just one of those games, just back and forth, all over the place. Both sides showed intensity. Before the match took place, we saw England walk up to the halfway line for the haka. We saw New Zealand answer back, the crowd singing. It was an atmosphere at Twickenham, and that is exactly what you expect when these two sides go head-to-head. But like I said, New Zealand, they will be very thankful that they managed to get themselves the victory there, because it easily could have gone the other way. I think that the difference here, which is pretty surprising to say, it was the bench. Normally we don't say that about the All Blacks, at least not in 2024. That's when they've really struggled to find their rhythm in that last 20 minutes. But Tui Pelotu, I feel he had a really strong game off the bench. Even with that last minute drop that almost cost the ABs the game, I would still argue that a couple of the big hits he put in beforehand were enough to also probably put him ahead of Tupavai in the game. Next week, off the bench as well, McKenzie and Roygaard. You know, say what you want about McKenzie as a player, but he nailed his kick from the sideline. He managed to get the try assist, or at least assist the assist, going to Will Jordan and then out to Talia. And the best thing about that one was he sold as if he was going to kick, said, no, I'm not Barrett, I'm going to pass it. And then they did end up scoring. So I think there will be quite a few changes, and not just due to injury. I mean, we saw Rico's hand get cut up. We saw Cody Taylor off in the first 4 minutes of the game. That was a massive hit for this AB side, mainly because of Safwa Moore. Once again, his lineout's not quite up to par, but losing him early and then also Beauden Barrett late could mean big changes coming for the Irish. Looking through at this English side though, Emmanuel Fiuai also great under the high ball managing to really cement himself as one of England's strongest wingers. Marcus Smith overall had a solid game, although he did miss 2 drop kicks early on in the contest. That was a tactic that England were willing to use, but then ironically, it was that missed drop kick right at the end of the game from George Ford that ended up costing them. So they went to it twice, it didn't work. They tried it a third time, and it also didn't work. But, like I said, this game could have gone either way. New Zealand very lucky, I believe, to get themselves the win in what was honestly one of their worst performances that we have seen, not just in 2024, but for an extremely long time. But a couple individual players really helped this side get over the try line. Mark Talia, Wallace Satiti, his work with the ball in hand, all factors in this contest. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning in. We are going to be doing the matchup between Fiji and Scotland that is starting very soon. So just a quick wee review of the contest. But I do thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the game in the comments down below. And I will see you all for the next one.